Hey guys, welcome to another episode of the Save Our Sisters Unplugged podcast, take two. It is Mother's Month, and I am celebrating the entire month with stories from the mamas. Today, we are continuing our Motherhood series with this second installment. Today's guest is one of my favorite people in the entire world. She is a semi-retired IT professional and a fully retired and happily retired wife. She serves on the board of directors of the Peoria City Employees Credit Union. She is a labor relations activist, a writer for the Traveler Weekly, an advocate for children in foster care through their Casa of Peoria program, a student, and recently took on the new title of Bibi to her sweet granddaughter. But the greatest part of her journey is being a mom. It is my absolute pleasure to introduce my sister from another mister, Miss Kim Furness. Welcome, girlie.
Yay, thank you. I'm so happy to be here with you again.
I know.
Well, for the first time. Thank you.
Yeah, and I always wanted you to be on here because there's so many topics that we talk about that I feel would be so good for people to hear. Like we've talked about, of course, children, we've talked about marriage, we've talked about life, we've talked about you being over in in the March on Washington and all those different things. And, we've talked about culture. And so to talk about one of the biggest things that we actually have in common was motherhood. And so I'm so happy that you were raised your hand to really sign up and do this because I would love to hear what you have to say.
All right, I'm ready.
So take two on the question.
Okay.
So I want to know what your initial thoughts were about being a mother, about motherhood. What did you learn? What were your ideals? Tell me what your thoughts were.
I'm kind of glad we're having take two because I think I heard you more clearly the second time you asked. Actually, I guess I would say that all of my preconceived notions were formed, of course, by watching my own mother. And she made it look easy. So really, I thought it would be simple, a matter of having a schedule, a time to do this, and that, and everything would be fine. The children would be well behaved, or I could say, wait till your father comes home and he'd get them together, or I might have to spank them a little bit or something, and then we just go on about our merry way. Because I perceive myself as being a very good, obedient child. Now, I don't know what my mother would say. But yeah, I didn't think it would be hard, even though I heard it would be hard. I thought the hardest part would be childbirth.
And that's the part I was not even trying to think about, to be honest. So you got married and you just, you and your husband were deciding to have children. What was that conversation like?
Well, he was begging for it. He was ready, and I didn't care. I could have carried on just living my life with him, on that journey. I didn't have that desire to, I want to have a baby by this age, or I'm ready, and my clock wasn't ticking, but his was. And so I was like, I love you to death, and you ready? Let's just do it. I have no reason not to. So we planned my first two children were planned, actually. And we planned that, and everything was fine up until about the 7th month. And then I began to panic. Well,
is this with the first kid or the second kid?
With the first, because I had a lot of complications with ACE, but I was, handling them pretty well. But in the 7th month, I just became terrified, and really, I was afraid of childbirth.
Did you have a birthing plan?
No, I read books. I didn't take Lamaze classes or anything like that. I didn't have any sort of coach or anything. So no, not really. But I just figured, women before me didn't have no birthing plan. I didn't need it, but I was just terrified to go through it because I heard so much about how much it hurt, and I was just scared,
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, and I kind of heard those same stories too. And, people saying, oh, when you're pregnant, there's 1 foot in the grave and 1 foot out. And I'm like, could you tell me that while I'm not pregnant? Who wants to hear that while they're pregnant?
Well, the thing that scared me the most, I think, was someone told me that women lose a tooth for every baby they have. And I was like,
What?
"That's my teeth." But I think that was because in their day or whatever, they may not have had, they didn't have fluoridated water. There was just some differences in healthcare
Yeah.
and that we have now. I mean, I'm thankful I have all the teeth I was, that I ever
Wow.
are still in my head. So
Yeah, definitely. That is definitely a plus. Yeah. There's always something that, the old folks have to say about life, insert topic, whether it be marriage, whether it be babies, parenting, all those things. They always have something going on. So you said your pregnancy was a little bit challenging with ACE. How did you cope with that?
just by following doctor's orders. I had preeclampsia,
Mhm.
and so I was on bed rest for quite a while. My blood pressure was up, protein in the urine, elevated blood pressure. I said that, water retention. So they were just watching me carefully. And then during an ultrasound, they told me that he may have a chromosomal defect in which he may not survive more than a week. And they
Oh,
actually
wow.
offered me a partial birth abortion. And I remember looking that up and saw what was involved in that. And I was like, whether he lives a day, a minute, 2 weeks, or a year, just let him be born normally and let things happen naturally. There was nothing wrong with my baby. He's 30 years old this August and he's perfectly fine.
Isn't that something though?
That was scary.
But it's scary to even at the birth, because then you think back to what they were saying and you're like, man, if I had made that decision.
Hey, well, there would have been yeah. I'm so glad. I'm pretty sure I was being guided through that decision, and there was just no way. I mean, we had come that far. He was going to come all the way on his own, and God
Mhm.
take care of it. So,
Well, what was the labor and delivery experience like for you?
uh, it was, once you're in it, all those fears and everything go away because you're in it and you have to deal with it. So I did not go all natural. I did get some meds. They had waited too long to give me an epidural, so I had something called Stadol, and I remember not thinking that it was working, and then it wore off, and I was like,
Uh-oh.
"Okay, hit me again, give me some more."
Right.
So that first labor, I think, as a lot of women experience, was quite long. Almost was more than 24 hours. Definitely, probably about 48 hours.
Really?
Yeah, and I remember hearing other women, they would be screaming as they pushed. And I remember, okay, I'm just going to do that. And then the nurse said, don't do that. Put all your energy into the push. Don't do that. And I just listened to her and she coached me through it and everything went fine. And I found that as I was pushing, I didn't feel pain. So I don't know. So it, was pretty good. I had a good experience.
Well, that's good because you were a little nervous about all that.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
I was terrified in the months leading up to it. But then in the moment, you there, lights, camera, action, there's no turning back. It's go time. So all those fears are gone.
yeah. And the nurse that delivered my first, she was like, push like you're pooping. And I'm like, what? It's like, push like you're pooping. What if poop comes out? Then my baby's gonna have poop all over it. She's like, don't worry about all that. We'll take care of all that. So yeah,
Right.
well, that happened. And so she just came in, scooped it away, got back in position. And I was
It's
like,
totally,
okay,
totally natural. If it
yeah,
happens, if it doesn't happen, yeah. Oh.
yeah, that was crazy. So now you've pushed. Whew, the hard part's over. Did you do skin to skin? Were they doing skin to skin back then? Like, how did you feel when you held your baby for the first time?
They were, let me tell you, I have 3 children. In all 3 cases, none of my children were born breathing.
Wow.
Ace had swallowed amniotic fluid, so they were basically having to resuscitate him. Sydney had a cord wrapped around her neck, and Micah was just in a little bit of shock because he was breech.
Oh
Uh,
my goodness.
yeah, it was scary. Like, the doctors are praying, I'm praying, the nurse is praying, my husband is praying, and and then we heard a little tiny cry finally. And then at that point, they kind of whisked them away to make sure that they're okay. But after the emergency was over, yes, I actually was allowed to keep my first two children in the room with me. So lots of skin to skin contact. I didn't let them out of my sight, never let them go to the nursery. So having that experience my first two times, when I got to my third child, he was breech. So I had a cesarean, and
Mhm.
was trying to wheel him to the nursery. I was like, oh no, all my baby, they stay here with me and don't take him anywhere. And she was, how are you going to care for him? I'm like I always do, we're
Right.
back and forth. And she was like, okay, I'm going to put him in the bassinet and I want you to pick him up. And because I had been sliced in half, well,
Mhm.
I had the cesarean, my abdominal muscles are cut. I'm not realizing this. So I could not sit up or reach over and physically pick him up. So once she proved it to me the hard way,
She was
I let
like,
her,
that's what I thought. Now I'm
I
taking
said,
him to the
well, but I'm
nursery.
like, put this orange string around his toe. Don't be getting my baby confused. Like, I just
Because
didn't
that could
trust
happen.
them. I didn't trust anybody. You know how that is when you're a new mom. You just, get off my baby, get away from my baby. Don't breathe on him. Don't
He said, put this orange string around his
wash
toe.
your
I don't want you
hands.
mixing him up with nobody else. It's like a luggage tag.
Because sometimes they kind of all look alike.
That is the truth. That is the truth. We hate when they say all Black people look alike. but
A lot
sometimes
of
all these
babies look
babies,
alike.
they're all
Yeah.
pink.
Yeah. So,
Well, that's good, and then of course you're relieved, after all that's done.
mhm.
So now you're bringing these kids home. What was the biggest adjustment you had to make after becoming a mother?
um, First out, probably a couple of adjustments. One, personally, I know once when I had my son, I couldn't imagine loving anybody else that much. And so I was really worried, will I love my second child enough? Do I have enough love? I didn't know. I felt so full with him. But what I learned is that your heart just opens wider.
Mm-hmm.
You feel full of capacity, and then when it's time to open wider, it opens wider, and everything was fine. So that was something that I struggled with internally that I really didn't talk to anyone about, because you don't want to say when you're a new mom that you feel like you have any shortcomings or limitations or whatever. You want to be everything that you think you should be.
Yeah.
The other thing that I guess was maybe the hardest struggle was just dealing with mine and my husband's feelings, just how we now managed our home and the division of duties now that we have a baby, and him feeling sometimes a little left out, because I'm devoting all my attention to the baby. And I think he was very understanding, the first month or two, but then after that, he started to feel like neglected. So just
Mhm.
finding the balance between, nurturing my marital relationship, and being new parents, and finding our balance with that.
Well, how did you find a balance? Like what steps did you have to do?
Well, after a lot of fighting and arguing, right fighting, and power struggle, we just had to agree on who was going to do what. We already, of course, had decided, that I would take time off from work, and there was no paternal leave at that time. So that part was understood, that I would be home for a while and that I would go back to work. And we just had to constantly talk about, okay, I'm busy with the baby. I need for you to make more meals or do more of the housework and things like that. And some things, he agreed with me on, and some things he didn't. So, when there are pieces left on the table, somebody's just got to man up or woman up and deal with
And
them.
get it done.
Yeah, nothing's perfect, but we did the best that we could.
Well, they say teamwork makes the dream work.
Yeah, a lot of times, one partner is doing the lion's share. I've never been a proponent of 50-50. I learned a long time ago that that's not realistic. Sometimes one person is doing 80, the other is doing 20, and vice versa. And, you just have to work it out and stay committed to being a team.
Yeah, I agree. And I think when you try to do that division of duties, it definitely sometimes can go 90-10.
Yeah.
It could go 80-20, 70-30,
Mhm.
but I guess if you have a common goal, like, okay, these are the things that I can commit to, and these are the things that I don't want to do, I feel sometimes people just really just need to just do it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And you had a husband to help you out. Some people had to do it all on their own. So they were doing it
Right.
all,
Right.
like in my situation, I was doing it all. It's the baby came home and I was it.
There's no one to argue with about who's going to do what.
No, but that could help and harm. That could
Yeah.
definitely help and harm because, when I had my first kid, I was 22. What the heck do I know about birthing? I know nothing about birthing, no babies.
I was almost 27 years old, and I was probably the first one of my children to experience that. And I still didn't know. You don't know until you are in the middle of it, until you're doing it.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Yeah, I agree. So what's like the best advice that you've ever received about motherhood, and how has it impacted you?
I would say do not parent from guilt.
Mm,
That
that's
came
deep.
much later, as when my children were older. We went through some abuse and some trauma.
Mm-hmm.
And, I felt guilty for that, having been a part of their life. And, you always want to fix things and make them better and make everybody whole. And sometimes I would want to allow things to happen because I felt guilty that their life wasn't perfect, So I had to let go of that. And you have to go back to the fundamental core values that you were trying to teach and lead with. And, things happen. You have to learn how to make it on broken pieces sometimes. You and I have shared that
Yes.
times with our children. And you can't, you have to stay strong. You have to continue to be mom and keep that leadership and keep order and keep discipline and keep routine. So that was the best thing. Don't let them do this, that, and the other because you feel bad that they experienced this. You still have to continue on with the values we want them to, live by and be a part of their foundation.
Yeah, I totally agree, because I still have some guilt about some of the things that my kids went through. And I just have to just let them go because once we've talked about them and I've apologized for how that impacted their life, I can only go forward, And I think sometimes the kids forget that when you were in that parenting space, you were in the age group that they're at now.
Mm-hmm.
And so sometimes I think that helps with perspective.
I remember my daughter, she's a teenager, maybe like 14 or so. And we had some argument or whatever. And then I was just going on with the rest of our day and talking to her normally and proceeding with what we had to do. And she's like, I don't understand. She's like, we just went through this and you just act like nothing happened. She's like, and I'm not ready. How can you just keep going? I said, because I'm your mother 24/7, no matter what, it doesn't matter. We still got all this stuff to do, and I'm never going to stop loving you or caring about you. And we still have to get XYZ done and keep all of our commitments. You can't just fall apart because something went wrong today. You catch
Exactly
in my room. And I said, I'm always going to come back to the center with you. And we're always going to try to move forward from everything. That's just who I am, So, and she's a mom now, and I, think that one day she will understand that wholly and completely. I think she understands it mentally, but her baby's not even 1 year old yet. So
Exactly. It's only until that little tiny, cute, little sweet baby is like, I hate you. It's gonna be like, oh. Then she'll have that moment of, okay, mama did say there would be days like this.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So how is it being like a BB now? Your role is different.
Um, I'm loving it. She's still so new, but she was here on Mother's Day and she's, reached for me and crawled to me and laughed and played. And, in the beginning, she's really just stuck on her mom and dad, and she would cry when anybody else picked her up. And that made me feel so bad because I
know
have the same natural initial connection, that I had with my children. I just thought it'd be automatically transferred, and to see her crying when I held her, I was like, oh no, oh my gosh. But now,
yeah.
But a lady at work told me, she says, when you gave birth to your daughter, you actually gave birth to your granddaughter. And I was like, huh? And she's reminded me that for women, we're born with all the eggs we're ever going to have in life. So that means Sydney, as I had Sydney, she had all the eggs she's ever going to have in life. And one of those was Phoebe, my granddaughter. So I'm like, okay, I get it. That's kind of cool.
That is kind of cool and weird all at the same time. Look
Give
at
me my
science.
Respect.
Right. Look at science.
Right.
The weird part for me is that when I think more so when Junior had his son, looks exactly like him. I was like freaking out.
Yes.
Oh my God. I was just having a hard time, like not snatching him and like putting him on the breast, because he looks so much like his father. Like I had to whip the picture out and you could not tell which baby was
your
which.
baby.
I knew which baby was
it's your
which.
baby. Yeah.
Even with EJ, EJ comes out looking just like Eleni, but he was a
does.
little boy.
Right.
So I could, get past that. But when Lorenzo came out and he's looking just like his father with the same dimple in his chin and the same curly hair, and I'm looking at him like, this is my baby. And I told the mother, I'm like, he looks exactly like my baby. And I'm looking at him as a grown man. And I'm like, because I felt like I was going back in time with him.
Yes.
And then when I whipped the picture out and I put it in front of her, she was like, oh my God. And I was like, I told you. So I had to take a step back because then I would start mothering.
Right.
Instead of being a Mimi.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, you've taught Sydney some things. You've learned some lessons along the way as a parent. Have you passed any of those on to Sydney?
I think so. I see how devoted and committed she is to doing her absolute best for her child. And I like to think, from our discussions when she shared with me that she feels that in good times and in bad, that I did my absolute best and, was always there. Like, I think I shared with you, they send the bat signal up, I'm Batman.
Yeah.
I'm Batman. And I see her being Batman for her baby. She's motherhood agrees with her. It's just made her grow in leaps and bounds in a really short period of time. And I'm so proud of her. And I hope that it has something to do with that.
I think so, because I think some of the things that we tell our children, they don't hear us until they need to implement it.
You can understand something cerebrally, but sometimes until you are walking that path and really got your feet in those shoes, does it really hit home, and then you really understand. So I'm sure she'll have many days like that. And I'm sure there'll be some things that she'll choose to do differently,
right.
Which that's fine, whatever works in it, as long as, she's just giving her love and guidance and discipline and attention that she needs to continue to grow. And I told her, I said, my daughter went through a lot of things when she was young. And I said, I didn't feel like there was anything in my upbringing that prepared me to be your mom when you're going through these things. And
Mhm.
I was going through it right along with you. And so it made me feel inadequate, like I wasn't handling as well as I should have. Going back to stop parenting out of guilt, I was doing the best that I could, whether I knew everything then or not. I said, I said, Miss Phoebe ain't gonna be able to get away. Been there, done that. If I haven't experienced it, your mama has, and she ain't gonna have nowhere to turn. What?
Yeah, well, Bibi will be there to be like, don't you hit my baby.
Oh, I do have this little secret thing where I say, well, if I'll get my payback for anything through my grandchild, I envision myself being like, don't you whoop that baby. She ain't done nothing wrong. Here, hide behind Bibi's skirts. But I'm sure I'll be a team player and will give her what she needs.
Yeah, I think so. But
Yeah,
at
those
the
are just
same
jokes,
time,
but yeah, so I
at
say.
the same time, you definitely look at the grandchildren a little bit different, and you look at your children, and it's a different dynamic. The times are different, so the parenting styles, do you think they're different? I mean, like, for instance, we did diapers. I did some diapers. I mean, Pampers was available, but we did diapers.
I
We
did have some
washed
cloth
them.
diapers, yeah,
Yeah, and
but
those were
not long,
amazing. But
not for
yeah,
long.
no. But when the money was tight, we would whip those out in little
Yeah,
plastic panties, and we would make those work.
yeah. I think that my daughter has more abundance, more resources than I had. And so
Mhm.
some things differently that I wasn't able to do. And I'm happy about that for her and for the baby. Um, I remember her talking about baby sign language class, which I don't think she's done, but that kind of blew my mind, like baby sign language. And she was like, yeah,
Yeah,
because they can communicate non-verbally and all that. And I was like, didn't really see the point in that, but I was curious to see how it worked out. But we have not seen the baby sign language class
I've
yet,
seen it.
have
I've
you?
seen it. Yes. Junior's girlfriend does it with her little baby girl. And
Okay.
I saw her doing food, and she would say, thank you. And I was sitting
Okay.
there, I was just so amazed. I was like, oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is because when Lainey got pregnant, I gave her a baby sign language book because
Mhm.
I always feel it's good for parent and child to communicate. They can't talk, but if they can sign, then that's helpful. But I was like, how would this work? How would you even teach it? You
I
know?
don't know. But that's true. I would love to see it in action. I don't know. Maybe Sydney will do it. Maybe I think that she's just kind of moved on just naturally because she will tell me that she's learned nonverbal cues just in the difference in how Phoebe may cry or whine,
Mhm.
what she's already learned, what she wants. So she may not feel that she needs that anymore, but just
Yeah.
the fact that she's thinking about all these different alternative ways to be a good mom and have a good experience with the baby and motherhood and everything. So
Yeah. What's the most rewarding part of being a mother?
the unconditional love. I feel like any other relationship other than parent to child is conditional, but I can't, there's no situation where I would stop being a mother. I mean, I can't stop being a mother, but I would love you and be your mom through any situation. And
Yeah.
I know that I have that in return. So no matter what we go through.
Yeah. That's really good. And what's the one of the best moments, like when you first brought your baby home? This is like your first baby experience with Ace.
Yeah.
What was one of those best moments for you, like when you and your baby were connecting, or the baby did something that you were like, oh my goodness.
Probably nursing, because I'm nourishing his body with mine. There is a connection when the baby's looking at you and your eyes meet. And it's just a feeling of I know that you can't survive without me, and I am wholly yours.
Mhm.
And it's just a powerful feeling to know that this little tiny being's life is in your hands, and you are everything in that moment to that child. So, and I remember calling my parents up tearfully and being like, thank you for everything you ever did for me. Because it was just hit me so hard that this child depended on me wholeheartedly, and I was that for him. So I was just grateful. I was grateful for my parents and grateful for him and just grateful for everything.
Yeah.
And
And
the bond
I
that comes with nursing was very powerful for me.
it is very powerful. And I struggled with the nursing part. And
Mhm.
so I felt a kind of way. I felt opposite of what you're feeling. I felt like I had to work harder at
Mhm.
connection because I wasn't producing as much milk.
Oh, okay. I
Yeah.
I did, my milk did dry up early with my daughter, and I felt a little bad about that, but you know, I got the time in that I got in, and I think whether you nurse a few weeks or several months, it's all good. It's all good.
Yeah. As long as I get a little bit in, I think that those first initial, the colostrum and then that first milk,
Yeah.
I think that's good. But I think one of the reasons why I feel so bad is because these days you can go out and you can buy all these different things. There's so many resources on how to increase your milk supply.
Mm-hmm.
And I
Yeah.
feel like
And
if I had that then, I would
yeah.
have, been able to produce more. Because I think with my kids, I think with each of them, I probably did not get past 2 months.
Mm-hmm. And that just may have been natural for your body, but you put in the time that you were able to, and I'm sure that was beneficial for them. I see how healthy they are. They're not sickly. So I
Yeah.
gave them some of that good stuff.
Yeah, they got the good, good. They
I don't know if
definitely
it's
got
true.
the
I
good,
was
good.
told that breastfed babies get less ear infections, and my children did not get ear infections. I don't know how true that is overall, but it was true for us.
Yeah. Well, and I just thank God because I'm on the other end of the spectrum of that, and they also say that they don't get sick as often either.
Mhm.
And so my kids weren't getting sick either.
Right.
So, but that breastfeeding part, listen,
It's tough sometimes.
it is very tough. I mean, the entire process is so nerve-wracking. It can make or break your day. And then sometimes you could spend like a whole day almost getting that breast milk together, and then somebody would spill it.
Oh no.
You would just lose your mind. Like, do you know how long it took me to pump that out?
Yeah.
But I think that's one of the toughest parts of being a new mom is the latch and then the entire feeding process.
Yeah, I had some really great nurses because I didn't know how to get the baby to latch on, and I was concerned that I was going to go home and not know what I was doing, but they just kept working with me. They weren't birthing coaches, it wasn't part of their job, but I just was really blessed to have some great women helping me out. And by the time I went home, I had it down. So,
And
yeah.
that was like your little temporary village.
Yes, yes. Everybody loves a good nurse.
Yeah,
Appreciate
because
them more than the doctors.
because they're first of all, they're women, so they kind of get it, you know.
Mostly. Had a lot
Well,
of, I
mostly.
never had a male nurse for obstetrics, but I've encountered a lot of male nurses since then. So I
Mhm.
appreciate seeing men in those roles too. Because a lot of times with men patients, we're getting all up on another topic though. But yeah, nurses, male, female, are awesome.
Yeah, I think so. So, what is the biggest misconception you think people have about motherhood?
Hmm. I don't really know what the biggest one would be. Well, I guess some people think it's easy. It's the hardest job you'll ever do, which we've heard that time and time again, but it is so true. It can exhaust you. It can reward you. But I don't know really what the biggest misconception would be other than that.
Well, I agree with that. I think a lot of people actually think it's really easy. Sometimes I think even, after we both had our divorces and we were doing it on our own, I think we probably made it look really easy, but it was tough. What
Very tough.
it got even tougher, like with every level. When they're little, they're compliant. But when you get into those teenage years where they have outside influence, I feel that's, come talk to me when you have a teenager, and then I'll tell you if you're parenting,
I totally agree with that. And I used to say that 9 was the perfect age because they could wake themselves up. They could take care of all their bathroom needs. They could cook a little few things if they need a snack or whatever. They like to do chores. They still thought I was the smartest, most beautifulest person in their life, and they wanted to play with me. And then you're right, they get to middle school age, and now they have extracurricular activities for the first time, about fifth grade.
Yeah.
And that's when they start forming, in my opinion, you're not their major influence anymore. You're not, well, you are, but you're not the only big influence in their life.
Right.
Start forming some independent thinking, and that is when things change. But they're growing up and developing, and it's part of the process. But that's tough when they start trying to let go of your hand and reach else's hand or go it alone when they don't know what the heck they're doing.
Yeah, exactly. And and for me, culturally, it was hard because I couldn't raise them the way I was raised. We did not spare the rod and spoil the child. You got the rod. I never really understood that part of the Bible, spare the rod and spoil the child. But no, we probably had a literal rod. Discipline, you had capital punishment, like it was a thing. But when you come here, there's DCFS that's going to step in and be like, no, you can't discipline your child like that. And I'm like, okay, how are we supposed to do this? Am I supposed to just let my kids swear at me in my face?
A lot of people say that, but you can physically punish your children. You can spank your children. You just can't leave marks on them that call attention to school officials and other responders and mandated reporters. So if you're sending your child to school with whip marks on his neck and all kinds of scars on his legs and arms, that's gonna cause someone to put their focus on you and make sure that child is not being abused, because child abuse laws are written for the worst case scenarios. Yes, some people in the middle or innocent, totally innocent, do get caught up in it, but we have to have these processes. So, but you can spank. But yes, there is maybe more oversight here for a situation like that than you would have found at home. But I grew up with spankings, whippings, whoopings, whatever you want to call it, and so did everyone else I know.
I definitely got spanked for sure. And I was all about the spanking myself, but I didn't really have to do a lot of that until they got into, I want to say, like middle school, where they were meeting outside influences, or, when I started like allowing sleepovers, and then they would see a different type of parenting. And then they would come home and be like, well, Nancy's
and push
parents,
their boundaries.
Yeah.
Push their boundaries.
Oh yeah. Those boundary, listen, they got exhausted pushing boundaries because they did it all the time. And when you have 3 children and you can't even be the same parent to each one.
Because they're 3 individuals. And my daughter used to try and challenge me with that. And she would be like, you treat me different than Ace because he's a boy and I'm a girl. Yes, I do. You're absolutely right.
I'm glad that you just stuck to the guns on that. Yes, well, I'm treating you different, and this is why.
Exactly. And I would say to any parent, if your child is coming at you, you always you this, you that, just agree with them because they're looking for a fight. So if you them what they're saying and just be like, yes, you're absolutely right, then they're kind of like a deer in the headlights and they don't really know where to go because they were ready for you to deny it so they could then come at you with points 2, 3, and 4.
Oh yeah, bullet points.
You've taken the wind right out of the sail. So
yeah.
Well, she admitted it. I said she was a poopy head? And she says, I sure am. Look at me.
Yep.
And they don't know.
I was told that I was emotionally unavailable when the kids were going through high school. And I was like, yeah, I was going through a divorce. What do you want from me? I was trying my best. I was hanging on by a thread.
Yeah. And I know in my own experience, once I had issues, with my father, but once I learned more about who my father was as a person, because I only looked at him as dad. And my vision in my head of what dad is supposed to be, and I don't have the father that I want or think I deserve, this, that, and the other. And when I grew up, I learned about who my father is, how he got to be, how he was, his experiences just as a human. I respected it. I understood it. It helped me understand where he was coming from and why he was the way he was. And then I give whatever I felt needed to be forgiven, whether it did or not. In my mind, I needed to forgive him, and I did. And I think you being honest with your children, yes, because we're humans. We're not just your mom. We have we're trying to sort through. We got our own broken pieces that we're trying to make it on, and it is what it is. And like we said earlier, you had to move forward. And you had to let them know, I'm still here. Sometimes you have to take a break. It's okay not know what to do next and just take a break and do nothing. I used to say that. I'm like, okay, I'm just going to take my hands off of it. And then after I calm down or got myself back together, then I think of another master plan. Okay, we're going to try this next. That might not work either, but I'm never giving up.
Yeah, it's like you got to go back to the drawing board, come back, see if that works, and then go back again. If it didn't, it's really touch and go, being a mother, it really has its ebbs and flows, So now your kids are all adults. What lessons did you teach that you hope your children have learned? And why is that important to you?
To learn how to make it on the broken pieces, because life is not perfect. There will be ups and downs, sometimes catastrophic, devastating things can happen. But you have to carry on. You don't get to just stop. What would the other thing be? I had it right on the tip of my tongue. But that would be one, and that's important to me just because I want them to be able to push through any challenges that they have. Oh, the other thing that I told them is that learn to move forward through your fear. So I guarantee you, I said 100% of the time when I have been afraid to do something and I've been able to push myself to do it anyway, I always 100% said, that wasn't as bad as I thought it was. I said, so push past your fear. And once you do it, once you get over that hurdle, you'll be able to do it again, and you'll be able to tackle other things, and you'll know that you have it within yourself to handle whatever you're dealing with. You can do it.
Yeah, I hear you.
And it's just important to me for, just for their survival and their growth as humans and as adults. So
what was the best, what is the best thing for you about watching who your kids have turned into as adults?
That they didn't follow my plan. And initially, when they didn't follow my plan for their life, I felt that I had failed them. But what I saw is that they're good human beings, they're good citizens, they're not in jail, they're not drug addicts, they can stand on their own 2 feet and take care of themselves and not call mommy all the time to solve their problems. If they do, I'm here. Just that they can handle their own shit.
I hear you.
Yeah. And if they're happy and able to maintain their own life in healthy relationships, I'm happy. And always just watching to see what they do next.
I agree with that. It's so amazing to just watch them, because sometimes when you tell them things, you don't think that they're really listening until you hear them telling it to one of their friends. And
yeah.
you're like, Oh,
Yeah.
okay. So you did hear me, you know,
Mhm.
and then you sit
And the
back in
same
like,
like
well,
with music, okay? Like I bumped a lot of Erica Badu, and my oldest son grew to love Erica Badu. And I remember them talking about my music and how it was, I don't like it, it's stupid. We like this over here. And then as they became adults, I listened to their playlist, and it's all the stuff Mama used to listen to.
see.
So I love that part. I love having a musical influence on them.
Exactly. You were like, I thought you didn't like this.
Yeah, now you know what's up.
Exactly. Now you're cool. Welcome to the club.
Mhm.
Well, before we close, what advice would you give to mothers who are just starting on their journey or those that are really seasoned? Because, we're different mothers at different stages.
I saw something on Facebook the other day, and I saved it, and I'm going to read it. And this would be my advice because I thought it was it's actually from a young mother that I watched grow up. So I was really, impressed that she posted it because I consider myself her bonus mom and
Mhm.
hope that everybody else will like it too. So, I got to.
Put spectacles.
Yes. So this says we get 12 times to play Santa if we're lucky, 12 spring breaks, 13 first days of school, 12 Easter baskets, 22 fairy visits, one first date, 1 to 2 proms, and 1 to 2 chances to see them in a cap and gown. And I say to that, so hold on to everything and cherish every moment, the good stuff, the bad stuff, and everything in between, because that time really is short. And that just gives me perspective on how much you pack into those years from infancy to adulthood. So
Yeah.
don't forget that, moms, and just do your best. It'll come back to you.
I really like that. That
Mhm.
is that is sage advice. I really like how that was just laid out like that.
Yeah,
That's
never thought about that
perspective.
before. It's not that many. That's not that many moments. So you got to make the most of them.
So how old was this young mother?
Say 28, 29.
Oh,
Same
wow.
course. Yeah.
That's good. That's good. So she's learned some things. So she's on the right track.
Yeah, yes. And she's got twins. She's a mom of twins.
Woo.
First time out.
Oh, Lord.
I'm sure there's some things that she could share that I don't know anything
My
about.
womb just jumped. I definitely did not want twins. People thought Lainey and Junior were twins, but they're 15 months apart. But I'm like, no, one at a time, please and thank you. I am
Yeah.
not trying to have a litter of children.
Yeah,
Oh my goodness.
our Irish twins, we're less than 1 year apart. My mother said it was like having twins.
Well, yeah, I would say because I don't think anybody is walking at that point.
Yeah, 2 babies in diapers. So
Yeah, I did have that. I had the girl diapers and the boy diapers, and I could not interchange because, as we know, they pee in different places. So I couldn't even say, well, let me buy a jumbo of the boys or let me buy a jumbo of the girls. And nope, it was a disaster when I tried to interchange
and
it.
I would have tried to put one of them mugs on backwards.
Yeah, but then the flap, then to take it
I
off.
know. I still would have tried it.
Hey, we got to try everything because, that budget is something else. You got to stick to it. When you are on a budget, you have to try and find creative ways. That's why those cloth diapers were always on deck.
Yes, with the rubber pants and the little pins with the safety pins with the ducks
Yes. Ooh,
characters.
my headphones are excited.
Yes.
Oh my gosh, Kim, I enjoyed this conversation. Thank you so
Me
much
too.
for coming here and imparting all of your motherly wisdom.
You're welcome. Thank you for inviting me.
Oh, you're welcome. Well, we will talk soon. Peace and blessings.